presents. You're talking about for ClickUp, correct?
Either one. I can go either way.
That's true. They can go either way. That's right.
Yeah. Release is not important. Should not be even in this particular space. So you can ignore that. Same with original. Original estimate is literally just for our time tracking. So that is not important to you guys. It can be left blank. Type is also should not be relevant inside of this one. So maybe we should remove that custom field. Do you have a Gusto account? I don't know what that is, Cynthia. I believe that's for contractors when they're signing up. Correct. But I don't think this is relevant inside the gigs. So this should not, this custom field should not even be in there. So that's not important. Upload invoice. No, not important. That's contractor side. Producer is required. That's how we associate the gig with one of our 4 or 5. Well, we've got another one coming on board. So producers. So that's a must have. That's probably the most important field.
Yeah. And is other like is that something that would ever say like, oh, a new producer is being, or I guess who manages this field? Is that something that would be managed prior to even somebody filling this out?
It's a big deal. It's a big deal if we get a new producer. So don't worry about it. You don't need to make that automated. We would
you guys would manage it, and that would be fine. Cool.
Yeah, that'd be a huge thing to pick up a new producer. I mean, we're thinking like 3-4 producers a year. It doesn't need to be anything that's automated.
Awesome.
Okay.
Receipts. I'm gonna guess.
No,
I think that's also contractors. Yeah.
Okay. Email, also contractors.
Which,
however, the next one, email there. However, you're probably, when you get to the client view, you're probably going to want a client email at some point. So that might be something we discuss. I'm not sure it needs to be at this point, or if it's just like, oh, client's name is enough, and then Cynthia's job is to backfill once we get contracts signed. That's something we could easily do.
Question.
You're talking about, sorry.
Right after upload receipts, you had talked about email. So I was sorry, I jumped ahead. My bad. You can keep going.
Okay, quick question on email though. Should we have billing email and primary contact email, right? Kind of like similar we have in FYC.
Because at this point, I need to know who to send the contract to.
I don't know that you need that in ClickUp though, Cynthia, for this like synchronization, because you could probably have all of that here, is what Tom's pointing out. So we could easily just have, we could have the global client record, and that's where you update it. So then if you see BPM, you know to just look inside of Airtable where the information is all at.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in the initial creation of a client might be, we don't want to create a bottleneck or roadblock at this point. We want to get the gig in the system so that way we can begin hydrating all this extra data. So you can come back and backfill that client data, but it's not in ClickUp. ClickUp is not where we want to put that data. So don't worry about it. I was just thinking about it. Yeah. So you're good. Just as long as we have a client reference.
Just to beat it down. So we're creating a new, let's say it's a brand new client name. We're cool with just, saying, Tom's demo.
Yep.
All this would be blank. Obviously there'd be, so then Cynthia can go in later and say, oh, Tom's demo has the billing information as this. And then obviously as we work down the workflow of the automation, we can have a rule that says, hey, make sure, if no client billing info, email Cynthia and say why, obviously that should never happen, but we can come up with that use case down the road. Okay, so email, legal name, entity name. I think you said that's for more contractor stuff.
Yeah.
Project. No,
I don't know what those are for.
Two projects.
It's just the gig name, I think.
So that would be the task name.
Is that coming from ClickUp, or is that for the contractor would get that project added to theirs, like a list of projects they're on?
That should happen later, but we've been using the gig name as the project name, Cynthia. Is there a problem with that, do you think? Tom, what do you think? Should we have a custom field for like the project code? We could create codes, we could create because there's a lot of fuzz that gets in there, right? Like at FYM gig -testing Coca Richard testing producer, right? Like we can't guarantee the formatting of the name in the task.
Right, so if it's going to be like obviously you could see, I think one of the tests I did was, obviously a case, case sensitive. So one field is one is a text field, and this one's a text drop, or I can't even see that.
It's a large text, long text. It's like I would argue.
It is a text. Oops, shit. I saved that. Hold on.
I would argue we should come up with a new thing called like project name or gig name, and then the task name could be Poopalopolis for all we care, because the actual custom field that we're looking at is that's the official name of the gig.
Sure.
Sans
Now
any
one-
prefixes
now I
and
guess-
bullshit.
One thing I've never seen, Coachella, things that happen yearly. Do you, is there a naming, like for here, is there a naming scheme or processes that you guys follow in terms of standard?
Try. And most of the time that they're getting entered in it is by the producers. So we don't have any training for them. We don't have any standard that we've asked them to do. We just kind of intuitively said, if you have always everything Seattle and you have always everything San Diego, do hyphen San Diego. So we can implement one if it makes sense. But
is there something is there an opportunity for like a repeatable, like you said, it's like, so let's, I mean,
you want to concatenate something together? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, something, that we kind of talked, Cody and I talked about, with such as client, is instead of this being a free text field, is being a drop down similar to the producers, where again, they can say, oh, this is Pepsi, this is whatever, or they can type in something. And when they type that in, obviously then that becomes kind of the next
Drop down field.
drop down field.
It's like the project key is what you're trying to describe, right? It's a combination of.
Yeah, and we just want to make sure that
kind of the parent, kind of a parent, and
The-
then
the direct
subcategory.
question we asked in the Slack was, for the ClickUp, can we make the client field a drop down instead of a free form? And that way it removes the odds of, like Tom's example, Pepsi being capitalized in one and not being in the other, and is seen as two different clients.
Yeah, please. That would be better.
Or we can do
It's
everything
easy.
or we can do like everything to lower, which is probably what most.
I think it's a great idea to lock it in, because it just guarantees that I'm going to select that particular client. I was going to ask you guys actually about that when we got to that one. So yeah, I agree.
And I'm less worried about lowercase and more worried about initials versus full company names, that type of like thing. That's very easy to two people call the same thing, two different things.
Yeah.
And again, that could be a standard we can use on project, like if this is if this is a category of BPM could be, I don't know if they have many different gigs, I don't know how the relational goes.
BPM becomes an unnecessary data point here. It'd just be music heatwave recap client BPM. It would be an unnecessary part of the project name.
Yeah.
So we would ask them to say, okay, identify who the client is. Awesome. Okay, then identify the project. Got it. And then if we wanted, we could rename the task after creation through a ClickUp automation. Just boop. Okay, rename the task to be client project date. If we wanted to do something similar
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
year. Okay.
So where did we leave off? I think it was service agreement status.
Service agreement status.
Okay, these are the complicated ones. So because the onboarding doesn't go in a linear process, there's like several parallel things happening at the same time. Like, for example, we get the service agreement signed by the client, we get initial invoices, contractor agreements go out kind of all at the same time, and they kind of come back. Don't think like a promise all, right? Like it's not linear. So
contractor agreements will be part of this flow now. So once it gets mirrored to Airtable, we're going to send an email to the producer saying, use this to create the contractor forms, because then we're going to use PandaDocs to send out all the contracts. So that one should be okay. But for the other stuff, the question here, I guess, is like for the service agreement status, is that something that we should always be syncing from ClickUp? Or does that not matter in this Airtable in general until it's like paid is the only, was paid one of the statuses, Tom?
Signed.
So
this is the status. This is
for the Airtable, there's paid. Okay. But so for the Airtable for that one, do we even care about this for the Airtable, or is that we can just leave that in ClickUp?
You leave it in ClickUp. It's just for our own tracking.
Okay.
Yeah. So is the whole pipeline, Justin,
not needed in Airtable until like maybe?
No, we wanted an Airtable so that way we can start doing the work of adding in contractors and associating them. So you want it to be added to Airtable automatically. I was thinking the same thing. Where like technically it's not officially there until it's past a certain point. It's not officially a gig until it passes a certain point. But the reality is it's almost like how we have in our resource planner, or an opportunity gets added to resource planner, even though we might not have a contract signed, because we need to allocate the resources. The team needs to start finding contractors, sending out contractor agreements, even though the service agreement hasn't been signed, because if they waited for, like what I was saying, it's not a linear process. It's like a parallel process. If they waited until they had the signature, they'd be down to like 2-3 days to get the whole thing put together. So we do have to do things a little bit.
Is there any minimum status that we should wait for? Because that would also work. Like, but all right, if not, then let's
no,
copy
they
everything.
they don't even bring it over to us until it actually has made it to a certain status. I mean, if we want to keep, they should literally be in a separate list in a different CRM where it's like an opportunity and a proposal's out the door.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the proposal status, we can talk to the guys, Cynthia, and they don't have them not add these in until they've got a proposal generally approved, right? They don't need to be adding in, oh, we met a guy last Tuesday, he's interested in a gig. Like, we don't need to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for now, we'll just copy everything. We won't worry about that then. So you can always choose to delete, the thing later if it falls through. So,
Right.
So I'm sorry, I kind of got lost in the weeds. So with like for things like particular service agreement status, it does not need to be a requirement field to create the gig, and it does not have to get pulled over as of
Correct.
right now. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Intuit invoice.
So the initial
Status.
invoice status is important. This is the one that indicates to again, a little bit of a reminder of our model. The contractor gets paid when we get paid. So this is one of the more important statuses to let them know. So
this is
I'm not sure that this is the appropriate data model for this, because we have, I kind of conflated two. It's called initial invoice status. However, it's kind of conflating in invoices along the way. So that's what's kind of wonky about this. We may need to discuss a new custom field for this. It's maybe like deposit received, final invoice received, and have two separate fields, because right now I kind of put the two into one just because it was, didn't matter. There was no data integrity requirement here, but we should probably break out a second status for this. So how we work really quick, Tom, to kind of help you catch up with that, is we send in a deposit request invoice. Once the deposit's paid, we can pay some contractors, and then we wait until we receive the final invoice to pay the remainder to the contractor. So it seems like it might be best to separate those two into different fields.
Okay. Is that, so going back, is that a field that needs to live in ClickUp, or is that a field that can be defaulted only on Airtable?
That could totally be on Airtable if you like. So it would be helpful for us to have it in ClickUp just for our own management purposes, but it does not necessarily need to be synchronized. It would probably be better, Cynthia, when you receive an invoice paid, you go into Airtable and update the amounts of this invoices that were paid, because sometimes they'll pay partial, sometimes there'll be multiple invoices. So it's better that she goes in there and just updates the invoice status within Airtable. That's a good call, Tom.
Yeah, because I think the event we're waiting for in Airtable to ping off, sending out the email notifications and everything else is the event of whatever invoice you want to call it. I don't, whatever that end invoice status of paid is. So it's like, again, if there's a field in Airtable, it's like, okay, whenever test Tom, initial invoice, whatever that field is, it's automatically going to be, I'm just making it up, needs to create, or whatever categories you guys want. And then that way you guys can set, because we know as soon as we hit paid, bam, all the contractors are getting emailed saying they're getting paid, X, Y, and Z.
On the next.
Really what matters, honestly, maybe that's even the wrong flow. Let me kind of step back a second. The reality is there might be 4 to 5 invoices in a project, right, Cynthia? That happens where we do have the initial, the deposit, and then there's supplementals because somebody remembered there were some reimbursements or something that needed to be covered, right? So there's a series of invoices that go along with a project. I think what really should happen is every time we get paid, we update a total amount paid to FYC, and then we determine whether or not the amount paid to the contractor is less than or equal to the amount FYC has received per like what we owe them, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if there's a discrepancy in it, okay, suddenly something should go to the contractor and say, hey, there's been an increase in the amount that FYC has been paid or FYM has been paid. You are due this much money on, the next payroll. That's really what it comes down to.
And is that
That
something
makes sense.
calculatable, or is that something that someone on the team will be inputting into a field saying that's how much they're getting paid?
It is calculatable, right? Since it basically like, what is the trigger that determines whether or not you can pay a contractor?
Whether the invoice is paid.
And what if it's a partial payment? Have you ever had that situation?
I've just been waiting till the whole gig is paid.
Got it. So we just wait until the entire gig is fully paid so even if we're only $5 short, we're like, sorry, we're going to hold on to this cash until client covers the whole thing.
Yeah, unless like there's been exceptions where Johnny's like, hey, he's about to quit if he doesn't get a deposit, but it's not like we're avoiding that. It's not very often that it occurs.
Okay. So you're not really doing it like proportional to the amount that we've been paid. You're just doing it based on like a binary of has or has not been paid. That's fine. That's probably the most, and you're going to cover 99% of scenarios with that, right? Like it's so unlikely. Okay. Then never mind. Forget I'm over engineering it.
Okay.
That
So
might be
just-
something more relevant to our partner portal later, Phil.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But there is what you're talking about though, of like a down payment that gets paid to them, or Cynthia, or does that not matter either?
It's very few exceptions. Like,
Okay.
I don't think it should matter.
So we're not
Okay.
paying contractors even though we've received the deposit? We wait until the entire gig is paid?
Yeah, that was the last instructions I got from Graham. And I've just kind of been going off of that.
So these fools are waiting like months to get paid?
If we can't collect, yeah.
I'm shocked that we still have contractors.
I didn't know that. I thought we were getting the deposits in order to pay the contractors.
The
I thought that was
constant
why we
ones-
took deposits.
The constant ones like Giorgio Migo, we're paying them on schedule, but like everyone else, yeah. The big clients have been good on paying, but it's always like the same ones that we're chasing.
Okay, if that's the workflow. Sorry, I need to do a little bit of
Sorry.
information there, Tom. Basically, what you have is a gig payment status, and it's either not yet paid or paid.
Right.
And that's the thing
Okay.
that triggers to tell the contractor they're going to get paid.
That works. That was our original understanding. And that's a question we'll come back to later when we're looking at the existing dashboard you built and checking on that, how you want to display that information.
I don't
So
think I
let's
did
just-
that right. So just a warning.
Okay.
I don't think I did that
Okay.
right.
Totally fine. That was another question is like, do you want, we'll get there. Let's wrap up this list here and then we can move on to the other stuff. So
contractor agreements, again, I'm pretty sure this is.
that's going to be specific. Well, is that for the project or per contractor?
Oh, it says contractor.
That must be.
Okay, so how that works is if we have a master services agreement with a given contractor, we don't need to send a new one. But if there's some, for example, maybe a new contractor, or maybe it's outside of the scope of work that we've already assigned for, we will need to issue new contracts. So
So is this field per contractor then?
This is per gig right now. So this is generalizing across the board, saying, have we gotten all the signatures? Have we signed it, right?
Yeah, then that's perfect because our goal is to pull that data from PandaDoc and give you guys a warning if they haven't signed within X amount of weeks or months of the gig.
So I think that this field is not important to you guys.
For a gig creation, obviously we can use it in the air. It might still exist in the Airtable for different potential or opportunities and stuff like that. Okay, so I just want to know, what gets on gig in it. So, service status.
This is just whether or not we've done the gig, right? So sometimes they're scheduled out in the future, or we're in progress and then it's completed. Not important.
We don't care about this. Yeah.
Okay, and then COI status is the now required field that Cody made.
No, it did unrequired. It was just still pinned, was what you saw, Tom.
Oh, I see. Cool. I assume this is the insurance thing, right? That each contractor uploads. So I assume it's not a knit gig.
Nope.
Well, it
Sorry,
depends
go
on the gig. Some gigs require it, some don't.
So I guess,
Will we
When-
require it on our end, I guess is the question.
Oh.
well, I
Mm,
should,
So
re-
you,
go on.
I think, Cynthia, we've been using this as a COI status from the contractors, not from us individually. I
okay.
haven't been thinking about the COIs in terms of FYM needing to send a COI. So it was more of like have the contractors provided their COIs because they sometimes do they do COIs per gig,
Gotcha. I've been using it for like the
whether or not we send
clients.
ours.
Yeah. Sorry.
We should, I mean, should it just be the standard that every time we do a gig, we do a COI,
I think so.
right? So this can just be on us. This is not relevant to the portal, to the Airtable. You're good. You guys can
Okay.
ignore it.
And then proposal status.
You can ignore it.
Cool.
Okay. And then obviously, like we talked about the client, which
Yep.
I think would be a little bit better to do it similar to the producers with the ability to
Yeah.
to
We'll
type
make
in.
that
So
switch.
just kind of recap. So obviously name, we can talk about a better process of not necessarily not pulling this as the Airtable name, but having an automation kind of standardize the Airtable name where it would be like the custom
Client
field, the
dash
the client dash or
project
client dash whatever. We would add another
project dash
project
year or
name
something.
dash year. Thank you, Cody, for.
Yeah.
And then so when that gets completed, everything else like we talked about, would be either added or not added. We don't really care. And then this guy gets proposed. So as of right now, I'm pretty, we can, the automation is set to create a task. It'll send in a gig if I choose to do. So if I do demo gig, I think if I just do a client, Cody's world, I don't know why I chose that. And then the producer is going to be, doesn't matter because they're all going to do the same thing. Am I blind?
Producers at the top. It's already, it auto assigned the gig.
I'm blind here. All right, and we save it. Automations will be working again. There might be some hiccups with in terms of standardizing it for everything. Soon the automation is going to should be creating the contact and everything else. Let's check. December 6th. That's today. Is this all? Um,
And it's just a one-way sync, right? Nothing gets pushed back into ClickUp.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
It's one-way sync and a one-time sync as well, as it's currently written. Both of those things can change in the future if you want that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I keep breaking the formula name of. Oh, I can't do a apostrophe. That's right. Funny.
Oh, that's
Either
good
way,
to know.
like so there's escape characters we can use to allow that. I actually literally just encountered that today on another gig. So, but outside of a couple of bugs and errors that we've just kind of conceptually been poking through, it is a one-way sync. What we can do again is talk about those required fields, which should at least minimize bugs and errors and human fingering.
And
So
just to before we move on for that, just get back to us on, is it okay to mark those fields in ClickUp required now, or should we be careful and not mess with the ClickUp at all? Because we can't mark it required only in ours.
Don't mess with it just yet, please.
Gotcha.
So just you'll have to remember to.
Yeah, we will not. We're keeping a list
again.
of stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, sorry, Tom, keep going.
Okay, so status necessary. We talked about ClickUp payment. So we went through all those. Airtable. So while that's kind of running, the difference between gig contractors and the contractors table. I guess what is the difference? Which one should be used for referencing contractors? Oh, sorry. Here's my Tom's demo and my gig was created somewhere. But anyway, you can see the client was at least created for Tom's demo. So going back, questions about Airtable design. What's the difference between gig contractors table and the contractors? Which one should be used to referencing contractors, and how accurate are the table schemas?
Those
So-
is gigs
so
contractors just a reference per gig? Sorry, go ahead. You explain.
Exactly. So your contractor is, can you just go to one? Justin, right? So for example, Justin's is the contractor record that we'll be using throughout Justin's life with FYM. Now, when a gig and a contractor are assigned, we want to have specific notes regarding that gig contractor, right? That's that like relationship between them. So we assign Justin to the BPM music heatwave recap, and we can assign a role for Justin. We can assign the original assignment. Okay, so he's going to be, let's call him a broadcast director. And then he's going to have the original total, which was the original amount offered to him. Let's say we offered him $1,000 to do the gig. And then what we do is we keep track of the total amount paid out to Justin so that he can see the deficit or the difference, right? Justin can accept or decline. That's already in the software, where I can be like, oh, do you accept this gig? Accept it. It updates the status here in Airtable. Decline it. Okay, it declines the gig. So that's the way we thought about that. The cool thing about doing it this way is we could actually build out the gig prior to assigning any contractors. So you see at the beginning, you don't have to have Justin. I could basically say, okay, we need these are the roles we need within a gig. We're gonna need a videographer, a photographer, and an editor, right? So they could build that gig out, and then they basically are offering it to somebody. Justin declines. Sweet, get him out of there. Let's get Brianne in there. Cool, Brianne's the new photographer for that. That's the idea behind this one.
Cool. Okay. And then so when the contractor accepts, is that when the paperwork starts, or is that paperwork before that? Or part of it? Like the paperwork being them agreeing to the contract and uploading their proof of insurance.
I have a feeling that I want to say that it's on that click, but I have a feeling that some of these contractors are not going to go in and do it. So ideally, that would be the automation. Yeah, automation should start then. If they're lazy and they don't do it, Cynthia's going to have to just accept the gig for them, right? And then it'll trigger all the automation.
Okay, so so they're going to get an email once you can create the roles, and then eventually they're going to put in Mark is this role, or invite them. And so we can send an email to Mark that says 3 things. Please accept the role. Please fill out the contract or agree to the contract. And please upload your proof of insurance if their proof of insurance has changed or it's expired, because we'll be keeping track of that now.
And if they ignore it, then Cynthia can come in and modify those records manually to trigger any automation needed and be like, hey, here's sign this. And some of them just won't sign, and we'll still be like, well, we're still doing the gig because it's 2 days till Pepsi halftime, and we're just going to take the risk.
If Tom scrolls a little bit in that the other window, the next step was literally us. I believe we have put an automation in here that's going to be a reminder. That's like for the form. Automatic reminder to sign, which we can either have it come straight from PandaDoc possibly, or we can do it via our make.com thing. It'll probably make make.com more sense now, since there's going to be 3 things happening. So that's like a planned idea that I think Cynthia came up with on our last call. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I just send them the reminders until they pay, and then basically tell them we can't pay them until they've done this.
Oh yeah, we can hassle them however you want. We can turn up the volume. You tell us. Okay, that's cool. Tom, what was next on the list?
Okay, so that's the Airtable. So just I guess with contract, I mean, how many contractors are? Obviously, I'm only looking at 2. I assume you probably
hundreds of contractors.
Okay, hundreds. Okay, and then I assume this probably is reflective as well as hundreds of rows that we're probably not seeing. Okay.
Oh, I just haven't done any of this yet. This is all just prototyping and me screwing around.
Okay.
I haven't. So
so the next question is, how accurate are the table schemas? These are still kind of a prototype, and adjustments are. I guess if let's say we're messing with, I'll use gigs because that's kind of the first things is are we good with adding, kind of, I guess, pitching, rows of like, hey, would you want
If we come up with an
whatever-
idea, is that okay to
whatever
alter this?
role? Do you want us to update the table? Or are you like, come up with
No, I
ideas and we
mean,
can
yeah,
do it?
go for it. The only thing
Cool.
that I ask is camel cased field names, and if you are referencing another table, use a format where it's like, if you look at gig contractors, you can see the
That's
format
what you
that I
did
like to use.
tell me this last time, I remember.
It's gig dot something, I think is how I did it. If you scroll to the right,
Oh.
yeah, where is
Yeah,
it?
gig
There it
dot
is,
name.
gig dot name. So only because I do happen to have a bunch of Airtable like utilities in my like JavaScript stuff that will roll that up into a nice little JSON for me in case I want to do a
Yes.
reporting on this later or something.
And this
Cool.
way I know this is gig, so I go to the gigs and it's the dot name for obvious
Yes.
reference. And that's, yeah. Oh,
And those are shitty named. If you want to go fix names, like for example, the gig name should be lowercase n. Like basically camel cased variable and field names is what I prefer. Like, payment status looks good. Contractors mail does not look good. So that was one that we
Right.
want to be changed. So you want to
I
make
see.
that
Yeah.
right.
We
That would
can
be my
fix
only
that.
ask. Add as many fields
Yeah.
as you want. I just ask that the naming convention is consistent.
Perfect. I love naming
Yeah.
conventions, truthfully. So, and then he has email templates sent to a producer when a gig is created. We could probably, once we kind of get the bugs and kinks worked out, we'll probably send you guys the email templates and just, that's kind of a end stage result that we can work with you guys of like styling, verbiage, that you'll probably want to include your own stuff with it. So,
Cynthia
so kind
can
of
show us some examples.
going back, outside of the weird bug that I just saw, that of course live testing is always the fun testing, where you accidentally break something. So outside of the special characters, which is again, it's a very, all you have to do is escape those characters, which is not hard to do. It's just I didn't do it. The next steps we have is kind of that end. Let me bring in the FigJam. Let me get the Figma. So if I need to, I have way too many tabs open. My apologies. I have blind interface. Okay. So the way we kind of tackled the whole workflow is we kind of started at the beginning, kind of just the gig creation, which we can optimize again with what we talked about, up until basically you guys do like the manual roll process. And then we also kind of attacked the back side of this is whenever that special field is marked paid, loop through all the contractors, send out the information saying you're going to get paid on, and I forget if we have, I forget if it's the 1st and 15th or 2nd and 22nd.
5th and 20th.
5th and 20th. Yeah, just to confuse me. So those two pieces are kind of in testing right now. And like I said, we'll make the corrections and then I'll send you guys just some blind copies with the expectation of, you guys saying, hey, we want it to, kind of giving us the prettier version of what the email should look like. And then once we're done with that, kind of working on the middle piece, is what happens after the role, after you assign somebody the role, is again emailing them, like Cody said, with the insurance form.
Essentially the two pieces, just because Justin was the one who originally pitched this to us, the two pieces, Justin, that you really emphasized were creating the copy from Airtable or click up to Airtable and then doing the contractor email/dashboard. And so we're starting on those two things first. Those are in testing. And then once we finish those pieces, we're going to do these middle pieces that Cynthia and Phil helped come up with on our last meeting that were kind of like, hey, we're already going this far. Like, here's some great ideas that we can make use of this automation. So those will come next. Tom, are you going to can we talk about the dashboard quickly, or are you still going to get to that in the future? I don't know what your list looks like. Can you pull that up? Yeah, the interface, the one that Justin made.
Oh, a little software thing.
Yeah.
Oh, software.
Which
Yeah,
I have an idea, but I don't want to like completely throw everybody for a loop. Phil and I played around with app sheets yesterday, the Google no code tool. But
well, we
maybe
haven't
can talk
done.
about
That's what we're going to ask you about is like what you want us to do with it because we haven't really messed with it. And so
Okay.
if you want to throw a wrench in it, now's the time. But
Yeah.
basically, because our pitch last week was like, hey, we built this system where we're like technically they don't need the dashboard. We're just going to email them and keep them in the loop. And then you brought up the point of like, yeah, that works now, but the goal here is you want to be able to offer like loans in advance to like help the contractors out and et cetera, et cetera. So you definitely want that dashboard. And so totally fine. We get it. We're going to build a dashboard. So, yeah, here it is now. And so the question is like, this was your mock-up. Is this like beautiful? And you're saying like, just make this thing work exactly as it is? Or should we change things? Like should status, is that where we put the paid or should we be adding something new to this view that is paid or unpaid? When the date they're going to get paid is? How much do you want us to touch
status? That status is their acceptance status. So this is the contractor at login. They don't need to know about like the other pieces of that. So they would change status. Airtable doesn't make this super lovely where I can click on that record and make edits. I have to. I'm only allowed one button, which allows me to then change status. So if you click on that change, you can hit preview in the top right, the little play button. You want to see it, and then because you're not a logged in user, that's annoying. I guess click on it and maybe do preview as
user at the top.
So
what the drop down just said.
Oh, preview as me. Okay, so then you hit change status, which isn't really intuitive. And then you want to accept this gig, right? So now we change it to accepted, declined, undecided, right? So that was the best I could do with software. That's the thing. Software is kind of meh. It's not great.
Okay.
But I also want to build a whole front end for this.
Yeah. Well, let's just assume software for the moment because we can, if we're talking UI here, we can use whatever, right? In the end. So let's just say, like, let's say hypothetically we're fine with software. I assume there's going to be like 3 sections on this page. One is things to still accept or decline. Current projects that you haven't been paid for yet, that'll say status unpaid, and any info that they would need. And then a third column of things that are done and over, they got paid for, and that'll probably be like collapsed by default or something so that they don't have to see it every time. So essentially here though is like, I'm just making it clear, like you built this already and I know it's not finished and I'm just making sure you're cool with us like adding another section here for that paid or unpaid section, and then another section called completed projects, right? And that way they can log in here, they'll see the 3 places. Usually it'll probably be like empty at the top because they're not going to need to accept anything, empty at the bottom or collapse at the bottom of things completed. And so the main bulk of the page is going to be, here's your 2 projects that are still unpaid.
Yeah.
So they can rest a little bit easier knowing that you haven't forgot about them. They're just unpaid. And the reason could say like, haven't been paid yet ourselves, that type of thing. So, and someday there'll be that loan or early payment button, whatever you want to call it.
Which isn't too hard to put in place because it's just a request, and then Cynthia would field the request and make the coordinate with you guys. So it's not that bad. But I'm just wondering if you guys have another option outside of software that is a little bit better.
We've looked into a bunch of these. I'm trying to. We don't have a clear winner. I'll say that. The reason we ended up ruling out software specifically when we did this was because it was for a public style website, and software really gets expensive once you hit a certain number of users. It's designed for like internal company use,
Yeah.
So the one, I don't remember the one that we ended up looking at the most. We never ended up needing to use it. We came up with another solution, but I can get back to you with a list of options to look into as well as a recommendation if you'd like.
If you guys don't have one off the top of your head that's like, oh yeah, no, you guys made the wrong choice, you should use Webflow, right? Like something like that. Then I don't think Webflow is the right solution either. That's just tying in the Airtable is gonna be a pain in the ass. So I think if there isn't something better like immediately, then just keep going with software. If anything, if worse comes to worse, like I could work on the actual UX if we want to together or something. But if you guys can get it functional where it's flowing through and the gig contractor can accept their payments and see when their next payments due, that's really what we're after.
Okay.
If there's some summaries maybe at the top, I don't know if they have like cards that you can put in. It's like sum of total amount owed.
Yeah, we could do stuff like
amongst
that.
many of their gigs. I'm sure there's something like that. So yeah, monkey with it, see what you can do to make it not suck. I mean, I spent maybe 45 minutes an hour on that thing that you guys are looking at. So there's definitely better ways to do it.
Yeah, we'll keep going on the software. And again, we have research we did a project in the past that potentially needed a solution like that. We came up with our own findings, but I'll just go back and find those notes of which one we ended up settling on, because I don't remember, because we looked at like, there's a billion of those, you know what I mean? So like, I'll go find that note again and see what our conclusion was at the time.
Cool.
Yeah, all right. I think that's all I had, at least. Tom, was there anything else on your list?
Nope. I mean, I guess for jumping into software preference, would you rather just have us, basically, I assume you can duplicate what you've done so far, so that way we're not, at kind of like I don't know.
I don't think
know
soldier's not being used either yet, so we're probably fine.
Correct. I just didn't want to like undo something and then you guys be like, "What the hell are you doing?" kind of thing. I'm always, but I don't remember if software has it does have a version history. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember. Okay, but so you're cool again if there's something that we're like, hey, close, but oh shit, we can do this instead. You're like, yeah, have at if it flows.
If you feel more comfortable, clone the project and work from there and have your own sandbox. And then maybe if I feel like tinkering, I have my own sandbox. Perfect. If that makes you,
that probably makes it just easier, just so that way, we're not undoing things that you've done. And if we have to go back,
we'll just have to make sure that it's easy to transfer the sandbox over when we're done. If it's easy to swap to.
I think you'll just duplicate the project. When I call it sandbox, I'm just saying like, if you're worried about something that I did that maybe you forgot how I did it or something from the beginning, just clone the project from here, and then everything else is, in case we ever need to roll back, you have my janky version.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. I'm clear. Is there anything else from you guys that we didn't cover or you want to make sure we hit? Okay.
Sounds like you guys are asking the right questions and kind of like figuring out where things are mapped. So you run into the same issues we did, which is where we're like, hey, yep, this is where these guys can take over. So cool.
Yeah, I think you answered everything. We should be able to make a big leap for our next demo here, showing it all going. So
cool.
We'll keep working on the outsides of that Figma and then do the middle.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Have a good rest of the day.
Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.